Break her arm, Anna. Do not go easy on her. More than 30,000 people are watching, my father shouted from behind the phone that was live streaming the match. I froze. Before I stepped into the ring, he had promised me this would be nothing more than a light exhibition between me, a soldier who had just returned from an 8-month deployment, and my younger sister, Anna, to promote our family's new gym. But now, Anna had my right arm locked tightly and was twisting it behind my back. I tapped out. She did not let go. My father moved even closer to the camera and shouted, "If you can take down a soldier, nobody will dare look down on you after today." I looked at Anna. She smiled and tightened the hold. That was when I finally understood. My father had planned this fight from the beginning. There was only one thing he had forgotten. For 12 years in the army, I had been the one training soldiers how to escape holds exactly like this. I am Rachel Morgan, 34 years old. I have served 12 years in the United States Army. 8 months earlier, I had left Fayetteville, North Carolina, for an overseas deployment. It was not until the vehicle carrying us returned to base on a weekend afternoon that I realized how much I had missed the ordinary things. I missed the smell of coffee from the shop near the gate. I missed the wide roads, the green trees, even the sound of traffic moving through town. After 8 months of living by a schedule that seemed to account for nearly every hour of the day, simply seeing a family standing in line for fast food made me feel like I had truly come home. I was not expecting a welcome home party. I did not want anyone putting up banners or bringing the entire family over to hug me, either. I just wanted to go home, take a long shower, eat something that had not come off a cafeteria tray, and sleep in my own bed. Around 4 that afternoon, just after I picked up my duffel bag, my phone started buzzing non-stop. There were messages from a few friends. One former fellow soldier sent me just 4 words. "Welcome home, Rachel Morgan." I smiled. Then a message from my father appeared. "Call me when you get home." I texted back. "I just got back. I should be home in about an hour," he replied almost immediately. "All right, I will be waiting." It was a completely ordinary exchange. At least, that was what I thought at the time. On the way home, I stopped for a large coffee. The young woman behind the counter looked at my military duffel bag and asked, "Did you just get back?" "Yeah. Were you gone long?" 8 months, she smiled. "Then your coffee is on us today." I was about to refuse, but she had already pushed the cup toward me. "Just consider it a thank you." Things like that happened fairly often in Fayetteville. It is a city that lives very close to the military. People there are used to goodbyes that last for months, wives raising children on their own while their husbands are deployed, and families keeping their phones close at night. Maybe that was also why so many people knew my father. For years, he had run a charitable foundation dedicated to helping military families. If a wife whose husband was deployed was struggling to pay the rent, the foundation tried to help. If a service member was killed and left behind a wife and children struggling with bills or tuition, my father was often one of the first people to show up. I had seen him drive more than 2 hours just to deliver a check to a widow. I had seen him stand outside a hospital close to midnight because a service member's child needed emergency surgery, and I had heard dozens of people tell me, "Rachel, your father is an incredible man." I always gave them the same answer. "Yes, I know." I was not saying it to be polite. I truly believed it. In our community, my father was almost the picture of a devoted parent. He showed up at fundraisers, memorial services, and events for military families. He remembered people's names quickly. He knew when to speak and when to simply sit down and listen. Once, a woman who had lost her husband told me, "Your father helped me through the worst 6 months of my life." I remember how proud I felt. Maybe that was why, for so many years, I rarely questioned anything my father did. If he said the foundation was short on money, I believed him. If he said a family urgently needed help, I helped. If he called and said he needed me to appear at an event, I usually tried to make it work. In my mind, my father was the kind of man who had devoted his life to taking care of military families while their loved ones were away serving somewhere else. And after 12 years in the army, I thought I had become pretty good at reading people. I was wrong. But that afternoon, as I drove through the familiar streets of Fayetteville with a hot cup of coffee beside me, I knew none of that yet. I only thought I was going home. I got home just as it was starting to get dark. I had not even finished carrying my suitcase into my room when my father called me down to the kitchen. He was sitting at the old wooden table beside the window, with a stack of papers, several envelopes, and an open laptop in front of him. Everything looked so familiar that I did not think there was anything worth noticing. For years, our dining table had often turned into a temporary office whenever the foundation was preparing for a major event. My father looked up when he saw me. "Are you tired?" "A little." "Sit down. I will make you some coffee." I laughed. "I just had one on the way home." "Then have another one." That was my father's way. He always tried to make every conversation feel ordinary before getting to what he really wanted. I pulled out a chair and sat down. He closed the laptop and leaned back. "The foundation has an event this weekend." I looked at him. "I have only been home a few hours." "I know. And you already have something for me to do?" He smiled. "I am only asking." I shook my head, but I smiled too. If it had been anyone else, I probably would have refused immediately. After 8 months away from home, I truly did not want to stand in front of a crowd or shake hands with people I did not know. But this was my father's foundation. "What kind of event?" "A fundraising night." He opened the laptop again and turned the screen toward me. On it was a poster that was almost finished. I could see pictures of military families, several logos from local businesses, and a message asking people to donate to the spouses and children of service members who were deployed. My father pointed to a number in the corner of the screen. "The need is much greater this year." "How much greater?" "A lot of families are waiting." He sighed. "Rent, medical bills, childcare. There is one wife raising 3 children while her husband is deployed overseas. Another family just lost someone." I stayed quiet. My father knew exactly what would make it difficult for me to say no. He continued. "I want this event to draw more attention than the ones we have done in previous years." "You want me to give a speech?" "No." "Then what do you want me to do?" He hesitated slightly. "Fight Anna." Gleasing. I stared at him for a few seconds, thinking I had misheard him. "What?" "It is just an exhibition." I laughed. "You called me down here to ask me to fight my sister?" "Not fight." He raised both hands. "Just a few minutes. A little demonstration." Anna had trained in martial arts for years. She loved competition, loved having an audience, and loved the feeling of walking into a room where every eye was on her. I was the opposite. What I knew about hand-to-hand combat had never been taught for show. In the military, nobody gives you points for looking good. There is no applause. The goal is simple. Get out of danger, protect the person beside you, and end the situation as quickly as possible. Those two worlds were not the same. I looked at my father. "Why me?" He answered immediately. "Because you just got back." I said nothing. He leaned forward. "Rachel, everyone around here knows you are serving. Having a soldier who just returned from an 8-month deployment at the event will get people's attention." I frowned. "I do not want to use the army as advertising." "Nobody said anything about advertising. You just said people would pay attention because I am a soldier." He was quiet for a moment, then his voice softened. "I am trying to help military families." That made me stop. He knew it would. I looked back at the poster on the screen. "How long do you need me to fight?" 3 or 4 minutes. "With Anna?" "Yes." "And it is only an exhibition?" "Only an exhibition." I folded my arms. "Does Anna know?" "I already told her." "She agreed?" "She is very excited." That did not surprise me. I let out a breath. "I have conditions." My father nodded immediately. "All right. First, I am not wearing my uniform." The smile on his face faltered slightly. "Rachel." "No." I looked him straight in the eye. "If I do this, I wear regular workout clothes. No uniform. No using the army to make this look like an official military event." He thought about it for a few seconds, then nodded. "All right. Second, do not mention the name of my unit." "All right. Do not use my unit's name on the poster, in the advertising, or when I am introduced." "I understand." "And one last thing." I paused. "This is not a real fight." My father laughed. "Of course not. I am serious. So am I. Anna can demonstrate some techniques. I can let her land a few moves. But no hard hits, no trying to win, and no turning this into some competition to see who is better." My father stood, walked around the table, and placed both hands on my shoulders. "Do you really think I want the two of you hurting each other? I have seen enough people get hurt over the last 8 months." His smile disappeared. I thought he understood. He pulled me into a hug. "I promise." I still remember those 2 words clearly. "I promise." "It is just 2 sisters having some fun for a few minutes," he said. "People watch, laugh a little, and then we raise some more money." I nodded. "Then all right." He patted me gently on the back. "Thank you." At that moment, I completely believed I had just agreed to help my father do something good. 3 days later, I arrived at the event about an hour before it was scheduled to begin. It was being held at a recently renovated sports center on the south side of Fayetteville. Nearly half the parking lot was already full. Staff members were putting up signs, volunteers were carrying cases of water inside, and a technical crew was checking the sound system. In the middle of the gymnasium was a ring. I stood there looking at it longer than I wanted to. Anna came toward me from the other side, dressed in training clothes with her hair tied back. She smiled. "You finally agreed to get in the ring with me. Do not get too excited. I have been waiting for this day for a long time." I thought she was joking. "Remember the agreement." "I know. Just an exhibition." Anna nodded. "Just an exhibition." I gave her a light pat on the shoulder and went to find my father. He was standing near the stage talking to two men in suits. When he saw me, he raised a hand to signal that I should wait a moment. That was when I noticed the watch. My father had never cared much about watches. For years, he had worn a simple, round-faced one that my mother had bought for him a long time ago. I had seen it on his wrist in hundreds of photographs. The watch he was wearing that night was completely different. Large face, shiny metal band, the kind of watch that even I, someone who knew almost nothing about luxury goods, could tell was not something you casually picked up at an ordinary store. I looked at it for another second. My father noticed. "Nice, isn't it? New watch?" He tugged his sleeve down slightly. "A gift? From who?" "A donor." The answer came very quickly. I nodded. I did not ask anything else. At the time, it was just a small detail. About 10 minutes later, my father's phone rang. He looked at the screen and declined the call. Less than 2 minutes later, it rang again. I was standing close enough to see the area code and the location displayed on the screen. Las Vegas. My father declined it again. "You are not going to answer?" I asked. "Spam call." "Twice?" He shrugged. "Telemarketers are persistent these days." He had barely finished speaking when the phone vibrated for a third time. Las Vegas again. This time, my father did more than decline it. He turned the phone face down on the table. I looked at him. He avoided my eyes and pointed toward the changing area. "You should get ready. We start in about 40 minutes. I was about to ask another question, but just then a volunteer rushed over and said there was a problem with the donation payment system. My father immediately went with her. I stayed where I was. I had been trained for years to notice things that did not fit. An expensive watch, 3 calls from Las Vegas, an answer that came too quickly. But none of those things alone proved anything. So I did nothing. I went to change. The event began at exactly 7 o'clock. There were more people than I had expected. Military families, local business owners, a few veterans, and people who had received help from the foundation in the past. My father walked onto the stage to loud applause. He held the microphone in one hand. His other hand rested over his chest. "There are families in our community tonight who are having to choose between paying the electric bill and buying food." The entire room went quiet. "I wish I could tell you that we have enough money to help every one of them." He paused. "But we do not." I stood in the wings, listening to him. "The foundation is seriously short on funds." A few people in the audience began reaching for their phones. My father continued talking about wives raising children alone, families who had lost loved ones, and bills that were still waiting to be paid. I had heard him say things like that many times before. But that night, for the first time, something felt wrong. Maybe it was the new watch catching the stage lights every time he raised his hand. Maybe it was the 3 calls from Las Vegas. Or maybe it was just instinct. I did not know. I only remember standing in the shadows beside the ring, watching my father tell hundreds of people that the foundation was almost out of money, and for the first time in my life, instead of feeling proud of him, I started asking myself one very simple question. Where had the money gone? That question stayed in my mind as my father finished the first part of his speech and stepped down from the stage. Applause filled the gymnasium. A few people moved toward the tables, lining both sides of the aisle to make donations. On the large screen behind the stage, the amount of money being donated began to climb little by little. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I was still thinking about the watch on my father's wrist and the calls from Las Vegas. I reminded myself that suspicion was not evidence. 12 years in the military had taught me that very clearly. An unusual detail is only an unusual detail until it connects to something else. I went backstage to get a bottle of water. The exhibition between Anna and me was scheduled near the end of the program. According to my father, all we needed to do was spend a few minutes in the ring, go through a few simple moves, let Anna have the advantage for a little while, and then finish with a handshake in front of the audience. I did not like being made the center of attention, but I had agreed. And I still intended to keep my word. Backstage was fairly chaotic at that point. A sound technician was running cables. 2 volunteers were carrying in more chairs. A woman helping manage the event was calling loudly for my father because she needed his signature on an invoice. I walked over to the small table where I had left my phone and bag. Right beside them was a black folder. I did not pay attention to it until a gust of air from the back door lifted several papers off the table. One sheet slid onto the floor right at my feet. I bent down to pick it up. I only meant to put it back. Then I saw my name, Rachel Morgan. Directly beneath it was Anna's name. I stopped. At the top of the page was the name of a media company I had never heard of. Below that was language concerning the rights to livestream that night's event. I did not understand why my name was in a contract with a media company. I looked around. Nobody was paying attention to me. I kept reading. At first, the terms were completely ordinary: broadcast duration, image rights, advertising, online viewer counts. Then my eyes stopped on a paragraph printed in bold. If the live stream exceeded 25,000 simultaneous viewers and Anna Morgan forced Rachel Morgan to submit during the recorded match, the event organizer would receive an additional payment of $150,000. I read it again. Once. Then, a second time. I thought maybe I had misunderstood it. I read it more slowly. No, it was still there. 25,000 viewers. Anna had to make me submit $150,000. I felt as though the entire backstage area had suddenly gone silent, even though people were still talking all around me. I turned to the final page. My father's signature was there. The contract had been signed nearly 2 weeks before I came home. I stood perfectly still. 2 weeks before I ever set foot back in Fayetteville, my father had signed a contract requiring my younger sister to make me submit in front of a camera. And yet, 3 days earlier, he had sat across from me at the kitchen table and told me it would only be a fun little exhibition between 2 sisters. I looked down at the paper in my hand. $150,000. It was not a small amount of money, but what bothered me even more than the money was the way the terms were written. It did not say, "The 2 sisters perform an exhibition." It did not say, "A friendly match." It was very clear. Anna had to make me submit. I pulled out my phone and quickly photographed every page. Not because I had already decided to accuse my father of anything. At that point, I still did not know what I was looking at. I only knew one thing: I needed to preserve it. That habit had become deeply ingrained in me after years of service. When something does not look right, do not rely on memory. Do not argue first. Do not make a scene. Preserve the evidence. I put the paper back exactly where it had been. Just then, my father appeared at the end of the hallway. "Rachel." I turned around. He walked toward me. "Are you ready?" I looked at him a little longer than usual. Almost. My father glanced toward the table. I could not tell whether he noticed that the folder had been moved. He only smiled. "The online audience is climbing fast." "How many?" He checked his phone. "More than 22,000. My stomach tightened. "Only about 3,000 more to go." "You did not tell me the fight had conditions written into the contract." His smile stiffened slightly. "What conditions?" I looked directly into his eyes. For a second, I almost pulled out the contract and confronted him right there, but then I remembered the way he had talked about all those families waiting for help. I wanted to understand the whole situation before I came to any conclusions. "Nothing," I said. "I was just asking." He watched me for a few seconds. Then the phone in his hand vibrated. My father looked at the screen and immediately turned away. "I have to take care of this." I watched him walk away. For the first time since I had come home, I no longer saw the man everyone in Fayetteville admired. I saw a man who was hiding something from me. I went back to the changing room. Anna was wrapping tape around her wrists. She looked up when I walked in. "Are you ready?" I closed the door behind me. "Anna, I need to ask you something." She smiled. "That sounds serious. Do you know there is a contract tied to the live stream?" Her smile did not disappear. "What contract?" I watched her carefully. "Did Dad tell you there is money involved if you beat me?" Anna frowned. "What money?" Her reaction was too natural. I understood immediately. She did not know. At least, she did not know about the $150,000. I sat down on the bench across from her. "What did Dad tell you this fight was?" Anna tightened the tape around her wrist. "An opportunity." "What kind of opportunity?" She looked at me. "You will see." "Anna, what is wrong with you?" I was about to tell her everything. I really was going to tell her that Dad had signed a contract before I came home and that we needed to stop the fight immediately. But then someone called from outside. 5 minutes. Anna stood up. Can we talk afterward? I grabbed her arm. No, I am serious. Anna looked down at my hand, then back at me. It is just a fight. That is exactly what Dad told me. She fell silent. I was about to continue when the music outside suddenly grew louder. The announcer began introducing the two of us. The audience applauded. Anna pulled her arm free. You promised. I know. Then let's go. I looked at her for another second, then followed her out. I still had not decided what I was going to do. Part of me wanted to walk straight over to my father, stop the event, and demand an explanation about the contract. But another part of me wanted to know exactly what Anna had been told. I thought all I had to do was get into the ring, keep my distance, and end things after a few moves. I was wrong. The moment we stepped out, the lights hit us full in the face. The applause was louder than I expected. A screen in the corner of the gym was displaying the number of online viewers, 27,846. I stared at the number. It had already passed 25,000. I looked toward my father. He was standing behind a phone mounted on a stand, barely taking his eyes off the screen. The official called us to the center of the ring. Remember, exhibition only. I looked at Anna. She nodded. I nodded too. The bell rang. Anna moved toward me. I raised my hands and blocked a light strike. The first move was completely normal. So was the second. I started to think maybe everything would end without a problem. Then came the third. Anna's fist slammed into my shoulder hard enough to make me take half a step back. I looked at her. Anna. She did not answer. She came at me again. This time I blocked her. What are you doing? She clenched her jaw. Fighting. No. We agreed this was an exhibition. Anna moved in close, and when we were near enough that the microphones outside the ring could not pick us up, she whispered, Dad told me this was a real fight. For one beat I froze. What? She kept circling me. He said if I beat you in front of the audience, a major promoter will offer me a professional contract. I stared at her. When did Dad tell you that? 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks. Right around the time that contract had been signed. The pieces were starting to fit together. Anna, listen to me. She did not stop. No. You are being lied to. Her expression changed immediately. You always say that. I have never said that. You have never believed I could do anything. I froze. This was not the Anna I remembered. What are you talking about? She threw a low kick. I stepped back and avoided it. The crowd cheered, believing it was all part of the exhibition. Anna moved close again. Dad said you were always telling him not to waste money on me. I did not have time to ask anything else. She grabbed my right wrist. One twist. I could have escaped immediately, but if I reacted on instinct, Anna could get hurt. So I slowed myself down. That was a mistake. She moved behind me, pulled my arm upward, and locked my shoulder. Pain shot from my elbow straight into my shoulder. I tapped the mat. Once. Anna did not let go. Stop! She tightened the hold. I tapped a second time. The official stepped forward. Anna, let go. I heard my father shout from outside the ring. Do not stop. I turned my head. He was pointing at the official. Let them keep going. I tapped a third time. Clearly. 3 times. In any real match, that would have been enough. The official started to step in. My father blocked him. I looked toward the screen. 30,000. 214 people were watching. The number kept climbing. 30,371. Senwen Ling Subai Bashaba. I felt my arm being pulled a little farther. Anna, I said, through clenched teeth. Let go. She did not. I looked at my father. He was not looking at me. He was watching the viewer count. Then he stepped closer to the phone, streaming the match, and shouted loudly enough for the entire gym to hear. Break her arm, Anna. Do not go easy on her. More than 30,000 people are watching. My whole body went cold. Not from the pain. Because I finally understood. My father did not want an exhibition. He did not care whether Anna hurt me. He only needed one outcome. I submitted. Anna won, and $150,000 went into his hands. I looked at my younger sister. She was wrenching my arm with all her strength, believing this was her one chance to get the career she had spent years chasing. Then I looked at the man standing behind the camera. The man who had told me only days earlier that this would be nothing more than a little fun between 2 sisters. That was when I understood something even worse than the contract. My father had not just sold this fight in advance. He had sold both of his daughters into the same lie. Dear friends, has anyone watching ever found themselves in a situation like mine? Please leave a comment and share how it made you feel. And now, let's get back to the story. My father's shout was still ringing in my ears as Anna twisted my right arm behind my back. "Break her arm, Anna. Do not go easy on her." That was the last moment I still thought of what was happening as a fight between two sisters. I had been holding back from the moment the bell rang. I let Anna take the lead, avoided her attacks instead of countering, and even deliberately passed up several chances to end the fight early. I did that because I still believed my younger sister had simply been swept up in the promise of a professional contract. She wanted to prove herself. She had no idea that our father had placed $150,000 on the outcome of this fight. But when I had tapped out 3 times, and Anna still would not release me, while our father stood outside the ring urging her to break my arm in front of more than 30,000 people, I realized that if I kept holding back, one of us was actually going to end up in the hospital. I stopped fighting against Anna's pressure. Instead, I moved with it. That was one of the first principles I had learned in close combat training. When someone has you in a joint lock, panicking and pulling the other way usually only makes the pain worse. You have to understand the direction of the force, create space, and escape at the exact moment your opponent believes they have complete control. Anna pulled my shoulder higher. I lowered my center of gravity, rotated my wrist, stepped diagonally, and shifted my entire body in a direction she was not expecting. The hold loosened, just a little, but for me, that was enough. I pulled my arm free, turned, and moved behind Anna before she even understood what had happened. I did not throw a punch. I did not kick her. I simply used her own balance against her. A few seconds later, Anna was on the mat. I controlled one of her arms, keeping my knee close to her side without putting my full weight down. If I had wanted to, I could have locked the joint right there. I knew exactly what angle would make it impossible for her to keep resisting. I did not do it. Anna still struggled instinctively. The crowd cheered again, believing this was a planned reversal in the exhibition. I held her only long enough for her to understand that the fight was over. "Stop, Anna." That was all I said. She went still. I immediately released her and stepped back. The official moved between us. I did not wait for him to announce a result. I simply said the fight was over and climbed out of the ring. Across the way, my father was still saying something to the staff member handling the live stream. I could not hear him clearly. I did not want to. At that moment, the thing I cared about most was no longer the $150,000 contract. It was Anna. She left the ring almost immediately after I did and went straight to the changing room. I gave her about a minute before following. When I opened the door, I found Anna sitting at the end of the long bench with both hands resting on her knees. Part of her hair had come loose. Her face was red from exertion and anger. I closed the door behind me. For several seconds, she would not look at me. I did not rush to speak, either. 12 years in the military had taught me to wait for people to calm down before trying to get answers. If I walked in and started accusing Anna, she would only put up another wall. I needed to understand why my younger sister had been willing to keep twisting my arm after I had already surrendered. Finally, Anna looked up. She did not apologize. The first thing I saw in her eyes was hurt, not because she had lost. Something had been sitting there for a very long time. Anna said I had just ruined the biggest opportunity of her life. According to our father, someone from a professional fight promotion company was watching that night. If Anna could defeat her sister, a woman who had served 12 years in the military, on a live broadcast, it would prove that she could draw an audience. After that, a professional contract could be put on the table. As I listened, I felt colder and colder. My father had told us 2 completely different stories. To me, it was a fundraising exhibition. To Anna, it was an audition that could change her career. And to the media company, it was a $150,000 product if I was forced to submit. 3 versions. Only one person knew all 3. I asked Anna why she had not told me before the fight. Her answer suddenly sent the entire situation in a direction I was not prepared for. She said it was because she knew I would try to stop her. I did not understand. Anna looked at me as though it should have been obvious. Then the old stories began to come out. Not from that night. From years earlier. According to what Anna had been told, I had never truly supported her pursuit of competitive fighting. Our father had repeatedly told her that I believed it was a dead-end path. When training expenses went up, I was supposedly the one telling him not to keep spending money on her. I sat quietly. At first, I thought Anna had misunderstood something, but the more she talked, the more specific the details became. 3 years earlier, when Anna injured her knee and needed extended treatment, our father told her that I opposed using family money to pay for it. He even told her I believed the injury was the consequence of a choice she had made for herself. I had never said anything like that. Another time, Anna had an opportunity to train in Florida for 6 weeks. Travel, lodging, and coaching were not cheap. She believed our father had struggled to come up with the money, while I had supposedly said the expense was a waste. I had never said that, either. Then there were tournament entry fees, training equipment, physical therapy, tuition. The more I listened, the more I felt something different from the pain in my shoulder, because I knew those expenses. I did not just know about them, I had paid them. I took out my phone. Anna stayed silent as I opened my banking app. I had used the same account for years. Because my work often took me away from home, I had developed a habit of writing clear notes on every major transfer. I never imagined that one day I would have to use those same notes to prove to my sister that I had never turned my back on her. I scrolled back 6 years. The first payment connected to Anna was still there, $4,800, tuition. Then, $2,300 for a training period. $3,100 for treatment on a shoulder injury. Smaller amounts appeared in between: travel expenses, entry fees, equipment costs, hotel stays during competitions. I handed the phone to Anna. She said nothing. At first, she just stared. Then her finger began to scroll. Date after date, year after year. I sat across from her and watched my sister's expression change. The anger disappeared first, then came confusion. Finally, something I did not want to see. She was beginning to understand. 3 years earlier, when Anna's knee injury was at its worst, the doctor had warned that without proper treatment, her competitive career could end early. My father called me while I was attending a training course out of state. He told me Anna did not want to ask me for help because the two of us were not close anymore. I remembered that call clearly. I transferred $8,500 that same night. My father told me not to mention the money when I spoke to Anna. He said she was very proud and might send it back if she knew I had paid. I believed him, so I said nothing. The $8,500 transfer was still there on my screen, along with the date and the note I had written 3 years earlier. Anna stared at it for a long time. Then she spoke so quietly I could barely hear her. Dad told me he had to borrow this money. I did not know how to answer, because at that moment, I was beginning to realize that I had been lied to too. In my mind, the story had always been simple. Anna wanted to be independent. Anna did not want me interfering. Anna did not like feeling as though her sister in the military kept showing up to solve her problems. Every one of those things had come from my father. I had never heard Anna say them herself. I started remembering all the times I called and she did not answer. The holidays when I planned to come home, only to be told by my father that Anna already had plans. The competitions, when I asked whether I should come watch, only to be told my presence would put more pressure on her. Each incident, taken by itself, had seemed reasonable. Put beside everything Anna had just told me, they looked completely different. I asked about her birthday 2 years earlier. That night, I had called 3 times. Nobody answered. The next day, my father told me Anna had seen my calls but did not want to speak to me. Anna stared at me in disbelief. She said she had waited most of the evening for me to call. My throat tightened, not because of one missed birthday, but because I was beginning to understand how many moments had been stolen from the two of us. Anna also remembered asking our father why I had never come to watch one of her important fights. She was told I did not care about things like that. Meanwhile, I clearly remembered asking for the location and date of the event. My father told me Anna did not want me there. It did not take one enormous lie. It only took 2 small lies told to 2 different people. And after enough years, they became a truth that both of us believed. Anna sat down, still holding my phone. I saw tears forming in her eyes, but she did not wipe them away right away. She admitted that she had hated me for a long time. Every time she received financial support from our father, she became more convinced that he was the only person truly standing behind her. Every time I was absent, she believed the things he had told her about me even more. And every time Anna kept her distance from me, I believed my father had been right about her. We did not need to fight. We only needed to stop talking to each other long enough. My father did the rest. I looked again at the transaction history on the screen. 6 years. 6 years of sending money while letting someone else take the credit. 6 years of Anna believing I did not want to help her. 6 years of two sisters living inside completely opposite versions of the same family. I was no longer angry with Anna. I also no longer saw her simply as the person who had tried to break my arm. At least, not entirely. She had entered that ring carrying years of resentment that someone else had carefully built inside her, and she had been promised that if she could defeat me, she would finally get the one thing she had spent years pursuing. That did not make what she had done right. But it helped me understand. Anna placed my phone down between us. Tears were running down her face. "So for all 6 years, it was you?" I nodded. That was one of the few answers that needed to be spoken without words. For the next few seconds, neither of us said anything. Outside the room, the music was still playing. The announcer was still trying to keep the event moving. More than 30,000 people were probably still watching the live stream. But for me, the real fight was already over. I had stepped into the ring thinking my father was exploiting one daughter's name to make $150,000. I stepped out and discovered he had done something much bigger. He had spent years standing between two sisters, telling each of us exactly what he needed to say to make sure we never turned to the other and asked for the truth. And once Anna began to understand that, I knew the next question was no longer who had won the fight. It was why our father had needed us to be enemies for so long. That question stayed with me, as Anna sat across from me, her eyes still fixed on the transactions on my phone. Why had our father needed the two of us to hate each other for so many years? At first, I thought maybe the answer was simply money. Maybe he wanted Anna to depend on him. Maybe he liked being seen as the only person supporting her career. But the longer we sat there, the more we realized this had not started with a few money transfers. It had been going on for years. Anna was the first to remember. There had been times when she wanted to call me while I was on base or away training. Our father would usually tell her I was busy, out in the field, or did not want to be bothered with family matters. A few times, Anna still planned to call, but then he told her I had just been through a difficult week and that it was better to leave me alone. As I listened, a series of old memories began changing meaning, because during those same periods, my father had been telling me a completely different story. He told me Anna was angry with me. He told me she believed I always put the army ahead of my family. Once, after Anna lost a match, I asked whether I should call her. My father told me not to, because she did not want comfort from the sister she believed had never supported her. So I did not call. At the time, I thought I was respecting my sister's wishes. Anna took my silence as proof that our father had been telling the truth. Another time, Anna wanted to borrow money to compete in an out-of-state tournament. She told me our father had sat with her for nearly an hour, talking about how difficult things were financially and telling her that I had refused to help. Meanwhile, that very same week, I had received a call from him. He told me Anna did not want to ask me directly because the two of us were no longer close. He said that if I wanted to help, I should send the money to him and let him handle it. I did. Anna never knew. We began putting the past back together. Every missed phone call. Every holiday we did not spend together. Every time I sent money but my name was never mentioned. Every time Anna wanted to talk to me but was told I was too busy. The most frightening part was that my father never needed to invent elaborate stories. He only had to say the right sentence at the right moment. If Anna was disappointed, he told her I did not believe in her. If I was exhausted after training, he told me Anna did not want to speak to me. If I sent money, he told me Anna did not want to know. If Anna thanked him, he never corrected her. Little by little, each of us built the rest of the story in our own minds. I believed Anna had pulled away because she resented the life I had chosen. Anna believed I was cold because I looked down on the life she had chosen. The truth was that for years, both of us had been hearing about the other through the same person. I remembered Christmas 4 years earlier. My schedule had changed, and I could not make it home on the actual holiday. I called my father first and asked whether Anna was there. He told me she had gone out to dinner with friends and did not want to wait for me. Anna stared at me for a long time when I brought it up. That year, she had been home almost the entire evening. She had been waiting for me to call. Our father told her I was exhausted and had already gone to bed. I did not know how to react. Some lies make you angry the moment you hear them. Lies like these are different. They make you look back over years of your life and wonder how many of your memories were built on things that never actually happened. Anna covered her face with both hands. I looked at my younger sister, and for the first time, I no longer saw the person who had just tried to break my arm. I saw the little sister who had spent years believing her older sister did not need her. Maybe she was looking at me the same way. I had spent years believing Anna did not want me in her life. Neither of us had ever checked, neither of us had ever asked the other directly, and our father had always stood in the middle. I do not know how long we sat in that room. Maybe 10 minutes, maybe longer. The event outside was still going on. The announcer was trying to keep things feeling normal after the fight ended so abruptly. Every now and then, applause came through the wall. Every now and then, I heard the foundation's name mentioned. Then Anna looked toward the door. She was calmer now. The anger from before was gone. In its place was a hard expression I recognized immediately. It was the look of someone who had just decided she needed answers. She stood up. "I want to ask Dad." I stood too. "I am coming with you." Just 2 sentences. But for the two of us, they changed everything. 10 minutes earlier, we had been standing on opposite sides of a ring. Now we walked out of the changing room side by side. Dad saw us immediately. He was standing near the live stream area, talking to a technician. The moment he saw Anna and me walking toward him, his expression changed. Very quickly. So quickly that if I had not been looking directly at him, I might have missed it. First came surprise, then worry, then his eyes dropped to my phone. I knew what he was thinking. He did not know how much we had told each other. He did not know whether I had shown Anna the money transfers. He did not know whether I had read the contract. And for the first time that night, my father was no longer in control of the story. He stepped toward us before we could reach the stage area. He said the fight had gotten out of hand, that all of us were too emotional, and that we should talk after the event was over. Anna said nothing. She just looked at him. I did not argue, either. I had learned a long time ago that when someone is talking fast because they are trying to stop you from asking questions, sometimes the best thing you can do is stay quiet. Dad kept explaining. He said the media contract was only a way to bring more money into the foundation. He said he never meant for anyone to get hurt. He said he had simply gotten carried away when the number of viewers climbed faster than expected. But there was one thing he could not explain. Why had he told Anna that I had always opposed her career? And why had he told me that Anna wanted nothing to do with any help from her older sister? When Anna asked him that, Dad stopped. Only for about 2 seconds. But I saw it. He did not have an answer prepared. Then his eyes moved toward the screen beside the control table. The viewer count was still displayed in the corner. More than 30,000. The live stream had not ended. A microphone near the stage was still on. I did not know whether the audio from where we were standing was being broadcast. Dad did not know either. And that terrified him. He turned quickly and went straight toward the control table. A technician stepped in front of him. Dad told him to shut down the live stream immediately. The technician asked whether the event was over. Dad did not answer. He only repeated the order, louder this time. Anna looked at me. I did not need to say anything. We had both noticed the same thing. Just minutes earlier, Dad had been shouting because he wanted more than 30,000 people to keep watching. Now he wanted the live stream shut down at any cost. He reached toward the control panel. That was when a voice came from behind us. "Do not turn it off." Dad froze. I turned around. The foundation's financial officer was walking quickly toward us. I had seen this person several times at previous events. Usually, they were the ones sitting behind a table with a laptop, checking donation totals, receipts, and expenses. But that night, something was different. They were holding a thick stack of files tightly against their chest. Their face was tense. They did not look like someone coming over to announce the total amount of donations. Dad saw the files, and the color in his face changed. That was when I knew what was about to happen had nothing to do with the fight anymore. The financial officer placed the stack of files on a nearby table. Dad immediately said this was not the right time. No one listened. The files were opened. Inside were bank statements, expense reports, lists of families approved for assistance, and payment forms. I saw the names, wives whose husbands were deployed, widows, families my father himself had mentioned on stage less than an hour earlier. The financial officer explained that while reconciling the accounts, they had discovered several expenses that did not match the records. At first, it was only a few $1,000s. Then they looked further back. 3 months, 6 months, a year. The deeper they looked, the larger the gap became. I looked at my father. He stood completely still. He was no longer talking. A summary sheet was placed in front of us. I looked at the final line. I had to read it twice. Nearly $180,000. It was not advertising money. It was not an investment. It was money that had been set aside to help military families. According to the paperwork, many of those payments had already been listed as distributed. But the financial officer had begun contacting the people named in the records directly. Some said they had received only part of the money, some had received nothing at all. There were files showing that certain families had been paid in full months earlier, while the people named in those files insisted they had never seen a single dollar. Some payments had been withdrawn from the foundation's account and then simply disappeared from the paper trail. No valid receipts, no confirmation of payment, no signatures from the recipients. I felt the sounds around me begin to fade. On stage, the event was still stumbling along. The guests were still sitting out there, some of them were probably still donating. They were giving money because they believed it would reach families who needed help. And right in front of me was a stack of documents showing that nearly $180,000 had left the account without ever reaching the people it was meant for. Anna stood beside me. She was not crying anymore. She was just looking at Dad. I looked at him too. The expensive watch was still on his wrist. His phone was still face down on the table. Those calls from Las Vegas no longer felt like a random detail. I still did not know where the money had gone. None of us had said it out loud yet. But we knew one thing. The money was no longer in the foundation, and nearly $180,000 meant for military families had disappeared over the course of more than a year. Dad looked at the files, then at me, then at Anna. For the first time since I had returned to Fayetteville, I saw that he had absolutely no idea what to say. His silence did not last long. The financial officer pulled out a chair, placed the files on the table, and began separating the bank statements that had been marked. No one needed to ask where the money had gone. The answer was right there on paper. I looked at the first line, Las Vegas, a charge at a casino, then another, only a few days apart. I pulled the statement closer. The names of the places changed, but the type of spending did not. Las Vegas, Atlantic City, a sports betting site, a luxury hotel, a restaurant where the bill for 2 adults was more than a military family might spend on groceries for an entire week. I said nothing. Neither did Anna. The financial officer kept turning the pages. More than a year of transactions spread out in front of us like a road my father had spent too long trying to hide. There were trips he had claimed were meetings with donors. In reality, the foundation's card had been used at a casino resort. There were weekends when he said he had to fly out for charity conferences. The statements showed hotel charges, alcohol, expensive meals, and sports betting. On some nights, thousands of dollars left the account within a matter of hours. I remembered all the times Dad had called me from airports. He usually said he was traveling to meet businesses that might sponsor the foundation. I had believed him. I had even once told a fellow soldier that my father worked harder than some people still on active duty. Now I looked at the numbers in front of me, and that memory felt like a slap coming back at me. I pointed to a transaction for nearly $3,000 in Las Vegas. The financial officer nodded. In the foundation's internal records, it had been listed as donor outreach expenses. There was no receipt from a donor, no name of anyone he had met, no contract, just a casino statement. I looked at Dad. He had found his voice again. He said the expenses were more complicated than they appeared. Some of the trips had been legitimate business. Some charges had been placed on the wrong card by mistake. Some of the money had supposedly been reimbursed later. But the financial officer was ready for that explanation. Another stack of papers was placed on the table. There were no matching reimbursements, no corrections, no documentation showing that the money had ever been returned to the foundation. I had watched people try to explain mistakes before. Someone telling the truth usually tries to make the details clearer. Someone lying usually tries to make everything more complicated. Dad was doing the second. He talked about accounting errors, then donors, then multiple foundation accounts. Then he blamed the financial officer for bringing the records out in the middle of a crowded event. None of it answered the simplest question. Why was money meant for military families showing up at casinos? Then I saw a transaction in Atlantic City. I remembered that date very clearly. Dad had called me that evening and said a fundraising trip to Philadelphia was running longer than expected, so he would have to stay another 2 days. I had even asked whether he was tired. He laughed over the phone and said that working for these families made the exhaustion worth it. That same night, according to the statement, nearly $6,000 had been spent at a casino and hotel in Atlantic City. I sat there quietly for a long time. I no longer knew which parts of my old memories were real. Anna stood beside me, her eyes moving from one page to the next. Then she recognized another trip. Dad had once told Anna he needed to go to Las Vegas to meet someone who could introduce her to a fight promoter. Anna had been deeply grateful. Now there was no expense tied to any promoter, only a casino, gambling, A hotel. A dinner that cost more than $800. I looked at my sister. She no longer looked like the woman who had been crying in the changing room. Her face was very still. But I knew that kind of stillness. It was what happened when anger had gone too far to need shouting anymore. The financial officer pointed to the summary. Nearly $180,000 had been withdrawn or misused over more than a year. It had not all disappeared at once. Maybe that was why no one had noticed sooner. 1,000 here, 3,000 there, 7,000 over a weekend. Then a small amount put back, then even more taken out. It looked like someone repeatedly convincing himself that next time he would fix everything. I had seen that kind of thinking in people with gambling problems. Just one more time, just one win. Just get back what was lost. Then stop. But on the papers in front of me, the number never moved back toward zero. It only grew. I did not ask my father whether he had been gambling. I did not need to. The calls from Las Vegas, the fundraising trips, the new watch, the missing money, everything connected. But there was still one thing I did not understand. $150,000. I looked toward the media contract on the table behind us. Then I looked at the total amount missing. Nearly $180,000. The gap between those two numbers was not very large. A thought came to me. I did not like it. I turned to the financial officer and asked when the official audit was scheduled to begin. The answer was Monday. I looked at the clock on the wall. It was Saturday night, less than 2 days away. I did not need much more time to understand. Dad knew the audit was coming. If the auditors reconciled the accounts Monday morning, they would see the missing money immediately. But if $150,000 from the media contract was deposited into the foundation before then, most of the missing money would be replaced. Not all of it, but enough to make the numbers look less suspicious. Enough to buy time. Enough for him to keep trying to cover the rest. I turned toward Dad. This time, he did not avoid my eyes. I did not need to ask. His face answered first. The fight had not just been sold to make money. It had been staged to save him from a financial audit. Anna winning was not some dramatic detail. It was a condition of payment. More than 25,000 viewers. I submitted. $150,000. Dad needed both of those things to happen before Monday. I remembered the way he had stared at the viewer count while my arm was locked. I remembered the way he had stopped the official from intervening. I remembered him shouting for Anna to break my arm. At the time, I thought he was simply greedy. Now I understood that he was even more desperate than that. If I did not submit, the payment might not be made. If the payment was not made, the numbers would not balance Monday morning. And if the numbers did not balance, everything he had hidden for more than a year could come apart. That was why he did not care that I had tapped out 3 times. That was why he watched the viewer count instead of watching his daughter. I could see that Anna understood too. She looked at the contract, then the bank statements, then Dad. In the span of less than an hour, my sister had discovered that the man she trusted most had not only lied to her about me, he had also used her dream of becoming a professional fighter as part of a plan to cover a financial hole. Outside, the announcer was still trying to stretch out the fundraising portion of the program, but the atmosphere backstage had changed. A few volunteers nearby were beginning to realize that something serious was happening. One of the technicians was no longer looking at the screen. He was looking at us. Dad noticed. He lowered his voice and said the financial matters could be handled later. He wanted everyone to stop, put the files away, and let the event end normally. No one moved. He stepped toward the control table again. The technician stopped his hand. The live stream was still running. I looked at the small screen. More than 34,000 people. The number was even higher than when the fight had ended. News of what happened in the ring had probably caused more people to share the live stream. Dad looked at that number. I saw something close to panic in his eyes. An hour earlier, the viewer count had been the thing he needed most. Now it was the thing he feared most. Anna suddenly walked toward the stage. I did not stop her. She passed the control table and picked up the microphone resting nearby. Dad immediately followed. So did I. When Anna turned around, the stage lights hit her face. The audience began to grow quiet. They did not know what had just happened backstage. They only saw the 2 sisters who had just left the ring standing side by side, and our father behind us. Anna looked down at the microphone in her hand. For a few seconds, she said nothing. I thought she was trying to steady her voice. Then she looked directly at Dad. I had never seen my sister look at him that way. She was no longer the daughter always searching for his approval. She was no longer the athlete hoping to make him proud. She was simply someone who had just realized she had been used. Anna raised the microphone. Dad, did you make me try to break my own sister's arm just so you could put back the money you stole from families whose loved ones are out serving overseas? For the next few seconds, there was no sound at all. No applause, no music, no one laughed. I looked at the people in the front row. One woman covered her mouth with her hand. An older veteran sat up straight. Two Foundation employees looked at each other. Behind us, the screen still showed the live viewer count, more than 34,000. And for the first time that night, I knew my father had no way to turn what was happening into another story. He could lie to Anna about me. He could lie to me about Anna. He could label gambling trips as fundraising business. He could move money between accounts and hope no one looked closely enough. But now, hundreds of people in the gym and tens of thousands online had just heard his own daughter ask the question he had been avoiding all night. I looked at Dad. He did not answer, and his silence said more than any explanation ever could. But as I looked at the bank statements spread across the table and more than 34,000 people still watching, I knew he did not have much room left to retreat. There was one thing Anna did not know. That night was not actually the first time I had suspected there was a problem with the Foundation. 3 days before I returned to Fayetteville, I received a message from Susan Miller, the widow of a soldier who had been killed nearly 2 years earlier. I had met her once at a memorial service, so I remembered her name. Susan asked one very simple question. She wanted to know why the Foundation's records showed that her family had received $12,000 in assistance when, in reality, she had never received a single cent. At first, I thought it might be nothing more than a paperwork error. I asked her to send me a copy of the notice she had received. When I saw the $12,000 amount alongside the Foundation's case number, something started to feel wrong. I did not call my father. Maybe part of me was afraid of the answer. Instead, I forwarded all the documents to the Foundation's attorney and requested an independent audit. I did not make an accusation. I only stated that a payment had been recorded as distributed, even though the intended recipient said she had received nothing. I still came to the event. I still agreed to step into the ring. Because right up until the very end, I was still hoping my father was not the person behind it. I wanted to believe there had been an accounting mistake. An employee had entered something incorrectly. A payment had been delayed. Anything except the possibility that the man I had trusted my entire life had taken money from families who had already lost far too much. But now, with bank statements from Las Vegas and Atlantic City right in front of me, I had nothing left to tell myself. Dad started talking faster. He said everything had been misunderstood. He said the money had only been moved temporarily. He said he was trying to put it back before the audit began. The financial officer asked him directly what he had used the Foundation's money for. Dad turned toward them. Maybe he had forgotten that Anna's microphone was still on. Maybe he had forgotten that the phone in front of him was still live streaming. Or maybe when a person is finally cornered, they start talking before they have time to think. I only borrowed it. I was going to win it back and put it all back. The entire gym seemed to freeze. I looked at the screen. The live stream was still running. Anna saw it too. Dad had not. He kept explaining that if the $150,000 from that night's contract came through, he could replace most of the missing money before the audit began on Monday. No one needed to ask anything else. His own words connected every remaining piece. Within less than an hour, the Foundation board members who were present at the event ordered my father away from the financial area and suspended all of his access. The financial officer collected the records. The Foundation's attorney was called. Every bank statement, the media contract, and all related documents were secured to be turned over to investigators. I did not stay to hear my father explain anything else. Neither did Anna. The two of us walked off the stage side by side. My shoulder still hurt. Anna's eyes were still red. But for the first time in years, there was no longer a third person standing between us, telling each of us a different version of the other. I had spent 12 years learning how to identify the enemy, but it was not until that night that I understood that the most dangerous enemy is not always standing on the other side of the battlefield. Sometimes, he can be standing right behind a camera and calling you his daughter. After everything that happened, I understood that the most painful part was not the betrayal itself. It was allowing a lie to turn people who loved each other into enemies. Anna and I lost years because we believed things we had never asked each other about directly. From that, I learned that within a family, trust should never rest entirely on what a third person says. When there is a misunderstanding, we need to be calm enough to talk and brave enough to search for the truth. I also learned that helping others only has meaning when it is rooted in honesty, reputation, money, and praise can never replace character, and most importantly, justice does not always have to come through revenge. Sometimes, the greatest victory is protecting innocent people, repairing the bonds of family, and refusing to let betrayal turn you into a bitter person. Thank you for listening to the story. Remember to subscribe to the channel and leave me a comment so I can keep telling even better stories for you.